Hello and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be giving you some Brother's Best Friend romance book recommendations. This is probably one of my favorite tropes. Every time I read a book that's in this trope, I always forget how much I love it until I read that book, and then I'm obsessed with it again. So today, I'm just going to be recommending some of my favorites that fall into this trope. So the first book that I want to recommend is To Love Jason Thorne by Maise. This is one of my favorite books from last year. I gave this 5 stars. I absolutely loved this. This book follows Olive and obviously Jason Thorne. And Jason Thorne was her brother's childhood best friend. He moves away, I think, when they're in their teen years. And so she doesn't really see him again, and she goes about her life. She is now an author, and one of her books is being made into a movie. He is a famous actor, and they are considering him for the lead role. So they're kind of thrown back together again. She knows who he is immediately, but she's hoping he doesn't remember her, and she had a huge crush on him when they were kids, and things sort of go from there. Like I said, I really loved this book. It's one of the few TikTok books that I think is actually worth all of the hype that it gets. I would definitely reread this. It was such a good book. It had so many cute little moments in it, and I love the one of them is famous trope too, and so this has both. So I really loved this one and definitely highly recommend it. Next we have Under Locke by Mariana Zapata. This is one of her earlier books, so I find it's not as slow burn as a lot of her newer books, but it is still a really good read. This one follows Iris, who has sort of been unemployed for a while, and she ends up moving to, I think it's Austin? Yeah, where her brother lives, and she ends up getting a job with his best friend who runs a tattoo shop, and she becomes the receptionist for the tattoo shop. And it's Mariana Zapata, so it's kind of got a lot of just, them interacting on a daily basis, and there's not a strong really plot line. Obviously you're following their relationship, but there's not really much more that I can tell you about this other than she works at the tattoo shop with him, and he's super grumpy and doesn't really like her at the beginning. And I really love this one as well. I'm pretty sure I gave this one 5 stars when I read it as well. Really enjoyed it. Definitely a good brother's best friend book. Next is Little Lies by H. Hunting or Helena Hunting. This is one of my favorite books probably ever, and it's one that I think is super underrated because I don't really ever see a lot of people talking about this. I feel like it has been going around a little bit more now, but this is actually the spin-off of the Pucked and the All In series, but you don't need to read those. This is sort of a next-gen series. It's their kids, but like I said, you don't need to read those series, and personally, I think a lot of people don't love the Pucked series, but these books, I feel like everyone I've seen read them has given them 5 stars because they're just different than those books, I think. And this one in particular follows Lavender and Cody. Lavender is the daughter of the couple from the first Pucked book, and Cody is the son of the couple from the first All In book. And they basically were childhood best friends. They both had a lot of anxiety-related issues, and so they were sort of grouped together a lot as kids. And they grow up, and Cody ends up sort of leaving or moving away from her, and now they are college age. This takes place in college. It is a hockey romance, because obviously as part of the Pucked series there's obviously going to be hockey, but in this book she is in university and she is living with her brothers, and her brothers are still best friends with Cody, and so he lives 3 doors down, so he's always at their house, and he's always kind of mean to her now, so she's kind of dealing with that and starts sort of going back at him, I guess. Like I said, I really loved this. I gave this 5 stars as well. I'm pretty sure. I am excited to read the next book in the series, and I just think this is such a good read in general. It's college, hockey, like I said, definitely I think it's multiple brothers best friends, because I think she has a couple brothers that are all friends with this guy and they all hang out with him. But I just really love this one and highly recommend it. Next is Fair Catch by Kandi Steiner. This is the first book in her, I think it's called Red Zone Rivals, I want to say. It doesn't actually say anywhere on the book what the series is called, but this is the first book in a series of standalones. They're all football, I think, college romances. I've only read the first 2 so far, but this one follows a girl whose twin brother is in an accident when they are, I think, 16, and he has to leave the football team. He's not going to be able to play anymore. He's now paralyzed in a wheelchair. And so she takes his place on the team. She has sort of spent her childhood practicing alongside her twin brother and his best friend, in the backyard and playing games with them and whatever. But she never really thought about actually going for the football team because it was all boys. And so when he gets in the accident, he makes her promise that she is going to take his place on the team. This book follows them now when they are in college. She is on the college football team, and she hates his best friend, and she ends up having to be roommates with him. So she is spending a ton of time with him. They're on the same team, they're roommates, they're literally in each other's faces all the time. I really, really love this one. I thought it was really interesting having it be like both of them on the football team. I don't read a ton of books that have female athletes, but I did really like that aspect to this one, and really, really loved this one as well. I think so far this one is my favorite in the series, actually, and just really enjoyed it. Definite like brother's best friend vibes going on for sure in this one, because it's literally like their childhood friend that they hung out with all the time. Really, really recommend this one as well. Next is Until You by Catherina Maura. This one follows Arya and Grayson. Grayson is like a super successful tech company CEO, I think. And so he's got his whole sort of business, and he is in town visiting this girl's brother. And I think it's like his hometown, so that's why he's back. But he's visiting her brother, and she sort of bumps into him again right after she has broken up with her like really awful boyfriend. And he offers her a job, and he's like, look, why don't you move out to California with me? And, you know, you can live with me while you get set up. I own this huge house. Like, it's not a big deal. You can just come and, you know, get settled and take the job, and it'll be way better paying than what you're working. And like, I know you're good. So like, don't worry about it. You have the job basically. And she decides to take it. This book is also one of those books where there's sort of an underlying plot line where they are talking to each other online under usernames and they don't know it's the other person. And so that was like sort of a really interesting part of this story as well. I really, really enjoyed this one. It's the first in a series that I do intend on continuing, but like I said, this one is brother's best friend, and I really loved how this sort of handled the brother's best friend aspect. I feel like it was very well done in like a believable sense, which I really liked. Next is Power Plays and Straight A's by Eden Finley and Saxon James. This is the first book in the CU hockey series, which is a whole series of interconnected standalones that are all hockey romances. And this is the first one, like I mentioned, and this one follows Foster and Zach. Foster is on the hockey team, and he has a brother who has this best friend named Zach. And Zach has decided to transfer to this school that Foster is going to. His brother goes to a different school, so he's not going to be on campus with the two of them, and he sort of tells Foster, like, hey, my best friend is coming to your school, like, you know, watch out for him, keep an eye out for him kind of thing, like, just make sure he's sort of doing okay. And Foster's like, yeah, sure, no problem, and his brother's like, but don't touch him kind of thing, like, stay away from him in that regard, but, like, make sure he's okay. And so Foster starts, you know, like, making sure he's okay, but then he starts, you know, kind of checking in on him when he doesn't need to, and like searching him out sort of thing, and it sort of goes from there. And this one is really cute as well. I really enjoyed this one. It's definitely, again, brother's best friend, obviously, got that dynamic going on, so I really enjoyed this one as well. Next is Twisted Love by Anna Huang. I feel like everybody has heard of this book at this point. This one follows Ava and Alex. Ava's brother is going away. I think he's studying abroad or something like that, and he leaves for, I think, a year, and he tells Alex to keep an eye on his sister, and so Alex decides the best way to do that is to move in right next door to her. And her friends are kind of like all intrigued by him, and they just think he's like super like broody and like emotionless almost, and so they all kind of start like picking on him kind of, and that's sort of how things start. And this wasn't like one of my favorite books of all time, but I know it's super popular and a lot of people do love it, so I did want to include it in case maybe you are one of those people and you want to read this book. But it is like a decent brother's best friend story for sure. Next is Mr. Wrong Number by Lynn Painter. This one follows Olivia and Colin. Olivia has sort of had this string of bad luck where she has lost her job, she's caught her ex cheating, she accidentally almost burns down her apartment, setting his things on fire, and so now she's like homeless, jobless, and single, and she ends up having to move in with her brother and his roommate Colin, so obviously that's how he's introduced to the story. And the thing with this one is it's another one, like I mentioned with that other book, where they're texting each other, but they don't realize it's each other because they think it's a wrong number that sort of started the text chain, and so that's sort of where things go from there. They don't know that they're texting one another, but they slowly start to piece it together. I really liked this one. I really like Lynn Painter's books in general. I think this one was really good. Next is Beautifully Broken Spirit by Catherine Cowles, which is the third book in the Sutter Lake series. This one follows Jensen and Tuck. You sort of see a little bit of them in the previous books, obviously, because it's a companion series, and so you kind of know that, you know, maybe there's something going on there, but like not quite. She sort of dates at least one other guy in the previous books, but she has this habit of picking like the absolute worst men to date. And so she kind of like swears off guys, and she doesn't trust her instincts anymore, and she just doesn't think that she's capable of choosing a decent guy. So she's kind of like, you know what, like I'm done for now. But Tuck has kind of been around, like I said, in the previous books, and things sort of go from there. I did really like this one. I love this whole series. It's all small town romances. This is the only one in the series that is brother's best friend, but I did enjoy the series as a whole. So I definitely recommend all of them if you're interested in reading the others. They are all really good. And so those are all the recommendations I have for you today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below, and I will see you next time.